I don't think anybody, any single person has this monopoly on being enough in regards to introducing you into a subject. Okay, you need to read broadly, you need to gain your information broadly from different peoples, from different sources, cross compare, always be skeptical at first, and make sure that you are thinking for yourself. Okay, there's a lot of people out there who would like to take advantage of people who are just getting into these things and present themselves on this pedestal of being the only source of knowledge you need, the only expert you need. That is a red flag, honestly. Hello everybody, my name is Joanna, I'm the Polish folk witch. Long time no see, I'm coming to you today to chat. But first of all, I just wanted to say quickly that I do realize I haven't posted any public videos on my YouTube channel in months. I just wanted to let you know that the time constraints that I have didn't really allow me to be as active as I would like to be on YouTube. I have been active, very active elsewhere. So if you enjoy my work, you probably already found me in other places like Instagram or my teaching space on Patreon, which is where I have been spending most of my time online anyway. So just so you know, I'm not gone from here, but I do post whenever I actually do have the time to be able to do that. So today I am coming to you with an answer to a question that I receive a lot in emails, in private messages, from folks who usually just found me, just found my work online or my book, for example, and would like to know more in regards to how do I get to start practicing Polish folk magic, or how do I get involved, how do I research more of this, how do I learn more about Polish folk magic or folk magic more broadly speaking as well. And I think this is a great question. I do realize that, you know, the times that we live in, where, you know, whenever you go online, there's just so much information bombarding you from all sides, and it's really hard to actually just discern what's legit, what's not legit, where do I start, how do I go about this. There's just so much. It's hard to sift through and be able to focus on something. I figured this is a good question because honestly, I was starting like 20 years ago at this point. It was a very different world. And even though we didn't have nearly as many resources available as we do today, which I think is amazing about today, is the accessibility of everything. But funnily, or maybe ironically, despite the lack of resources, the lack of access to them, still it was kind of easier maybe to start on your own path because you weren't so overloaded with everything to the point where it kind of creates this almost paralysis of where there's too much. It's hard to choose something and focus on that and allow yourself to just be able to start from that, even if as you progress, as you gain more knowledge, you might realize that that wasn't the best start, you know, but the starting is the most important thing, and it's not so easy these days. So for folks who have just found my work out there, I don't care which format of it, you stumbled upon me and you really want to get yourself into Polish folk magic or Polish folklore, you're interested in our culture, in our traditions, our heritage, our practices, our celebrations, our culture, everything and anything around that. I think that the best way that I can offer you to start off and to be able to see these things around Polish folk magic, especially from a bird's view, and be able to decide what to do next, is actually to just read my book, because that's specifically why I wrote it in the first place. I really wanted to write a guide for people who are new to this, who may know this and that about witchcraft or folk magic, but would really love to immerse themselves in this Polish cultural aspect of it, rooted in this land, in this culture, in these traditions, right? So my book offers just that. If you read it, you will be able to glean into some of the most important aspects of what we do, how we do it, why we do it, more importantly, as well as an overview of the cultural aspects of it in terms of like seasonal celebrations, all of that. So I personally think that it's a good introduction because that's specifically why I wrote it. So I would always recommend people to start from there. And you can actually see behind me these two books. Both of these are mine. This is the English, the OG edition. So for folks who don't speak the Polish language, that's the one that I would recommend to you because I originally wrote it in English for the folks of the Slavic or Polish diaspora to be able to have access to this knowledge. And then that one, the lighter one, is a Polish translation. So also to answer a question, yes, these are the same book, just in two different languages, in English and in Polish, so that people who speak both these languages can read the actual book. You don't have to have both, obviously. If you speak English, you get the English one. If you speak Polish, you pick the Polish one. That's about it, right? If you already read the book, you kind of have a starting point, right? And you want to know more, a good way to go from there, and this is especially accessible for folks who speak Polish, is to check out the bibliography at the end of the book. There's several pages here of resources that can teach you about all of these things in much more depth. Many of them are academic sources, sources that were gathered by folklorists, by ethnographers, anthropologists, historians, everything that speaks about the Polish culture and especially the Polish folk magic side of it. I think in general, this is good practice. Whatever kind of book you read, if you want to learn more about the subject, you just check out the bibliography and go from there, expand from there, and then the things you pick from the bibliography, once you read those, you check that bibliography, and so on. It kind of expands from that. Now, another thing I need to mention is that many people who come to me interested in Polish folk magic have this assumption, because this is very prominent these days in the online kind of sphere of magic, witchcraft, kind of this assumption that this is pre-Christian pagan stuff. And it needs to be stressed here that there's several approaches to these traditions. My approach is not strictly pagan. It does actually offer a glimpse into folk magic as it survived in this syncretized form, which means that it shows it for what it is without removing the post-Christian elements, the syncretized elements. It shows the kind of living tradition as it still is practiced today. Some people prefer the pagan stuff. For that, I don't think there is a book in the English language specifically for Poland that I'm aware of, at least, and that I can recommend in this regard. But if you would like a more general glimpse, I think this book by Anna Uroszewicz-Applegate, Slava, Slavic Paganism and Dual Faith Folkways. This is also obviously in English. Anna actually has Serbian background, so this is more South Slavic background. It's not the same as West Slavic. Poland falls under West Slavic traditions. But still, I think books like this are cool as an introduction, just to gain like an overview again of what's out there, okay? And this book actually focuses on talking about the more pagan aspects of the practice as well. So if that's your preference, if you are allergic to any kind of post-religious cultural elements that do explicitly show elements that you would recognize from Catholicism, for example, then this will be more your route. And if you speak Polish, I can recommend this book. This is in Polish by Anna Stasiak, Słowiański Przewodnik po Świętowaniu. This book is like a guide through all of the 4 seasons and all of the folk celebrations. And Anna, the way she writes is amazing. She does ask the deeper questions about where does this practice come from, what are its older roots, etc. So if you are really interested in this cultural aspect of our craft, I think, and you speak Polish, I think this is a great introduction. I would love for this book to be translated into English so I can recommend it to the folks who speak the English language. But I think it's really important in general that you do immerse yourself in the living cultural practices of the peoples whose folk magic you're interested in. Folk magic is of the folk. It does not exist in a vacuum. There's always the folk component of it, always implies a cultural immersion of a kind that needs to happen in relation to this practice for it to make sense, okay? If you are interested in practicing folk magic of any peoples, not just the Polish people, it would serve you well to also immerse yourself in the history of the people, in the legends, in the agrarian celebrations that still survive, in the living culture today, to gain like a broader overview of where all of these practices stem from, because that will give you the background that you need, the cultural background that you need to be practicing this thing without appropriating it, without just repeating things you see online without understanding why something is done the way that it's done. I think it's important to be always respectful towards the culture, and it doesn't matter if you are a complete outsider to the culture who's trying to enculturate themselves into the culture. If you are of the diaspora and you lost some of the heritage and you're trying to regain it back, or if you are local to the culture as well, the same respect is needed, and this approach rooted in integrity and honesty towards the culture, some humble approach is needed, in my humble opinion, so that we can actually partake in these traditions, in these practices, in the way that they deserve to be engaged with. Now, I also get these questions a lot where people are like, I've never done anything that has to do with witchcraft or folk magic. This is like my first impression into it, right? So people sometimes ask, like, is my book going to be enough? I think for people, again, who are interested in the Polish folk magic, it can be a solid foundation, but I don't think anybody, any single person has this monopoly on being enough in regards to introducing you into a subject, okay? You need to read broadly, you need to gain your information broadly from different peoples, from different sources, cross-compare, always be skeptical at first, and make sure that you are thinking for yourself, okay? There's a lot of people out there who would like to take advantage of people who are just getting into these things and present themselves on this pedestal of being the only source of knowledge you need, the only expert you need. That is a red flag, honestly. Always try to look at these things from a broad perspective to make sure that you are not being taken advantage of, okay? This is why I will never recommend just to imbibe my stuff and never engage in anything else. I think that's just wrong, and I don't want to present myself on this pedestal because, I just think it's unethical to be doing that. But assuming, again, that you've never had anything to do with folk magic or witchcraft before, and this is something that really interests you, I think a good first introduction book into the subject would be Roger Horne's Folk Witchcraft. I broadly recommend this book because it's written in a way that is culturally neutral enough, that speaks about how you can immerse yourself in the folk magic or in the witchcraft of any particular culture that you are interested in, that you can apply this very broadly if you're interested in Polish folk magic, Scottish magic, Appalachian magic, anything really. This is like a good intro that will set the stage for you in terms of giving you good points of interest, I guess, maybe for how to orient yourself, what kind of knowledge to gain, what kind of stories or legends or information about the land, everything you might want to start with in order to have like a solid foundation for your own practice. And it teaches you these skills of gaining information and orienting yourself around folklore, around cultural traditions that is very respectful, very rooted in animism, and I think very culturally responsible in general. So yeah, this book is like a good, very basic foundation that you can branch off of, okay? Hey, editing you, Anna here. I just wanted to come and add this book because I completely forgot for some reason, as another amazing book for people who are specifically interested in folklore from a more witchcraft perspective. This is Hikati Pikati, A Witch's Guide to Folklore by Kelden, and this book is amazing for people who do not have academic background, as most of us, I imagine, but still want to incorporate folklore into their craft in a responsible, culturally responsible way. This is a great book. This is the table of contents. It talks about all of the most important aspects of immersing yourself in folklore and how to go about that in meaningful ways that also avoid going into this territory of fake lore that we often see these days being a plague of misinformation online, especially out there. So highly recommend Hikati Pikati by Kelden as well. And now some more examples of books, because I think it's just a good way to illustrate, if you are interested in more British traditions, you might want to read Gemma Gary's Traditional Witchcraft. This is more on the side of witchcraft than folk magic, but since Gemma focuses her work around the local folklore from where she comes from in Great Britain, I think this still is a good intro to give you like an overview of what that might look like. Similarly, if you are from Appalachia, from the US, for example, you might enjoy this book by Leah Middleton, Magic from the Hilltops and Hollers. Again, the same kind of idea, introducing you, and this is more on the folk magic than witchcraft side of the spectrum, unlike Gemma Gary. So this will again give you a good overview of the folk practices of the people from that particular region in the US. I think the premise of the book is kind of similar to my book as well, where it's trying to give you like a good foundation for what you need to know, orient yourself, how to orient yourself in this work as a starting point. An amazing book for people who are interested in the Scottish side of things, especially in regards to folk magic, again, would be a book by Scott Richardson Reed, Mill Dust and Dreaming Bread, exploring Scottish folk belief and folk magic. This is like a legit, thick tome of goodness. And the way Scott approaches the topic itself is absolutely fantastic. So I highly recommend this book for folks who are into the Scottish side of things, and for people who might be interested in Estonian practices, I would recommend Punakula Poleb, a book of Estonian Malefica by Troy Trevoli-Vonder. This is a smaller book. I know that there's currently a much thicker book by the same author that's coming out in the near future. That's like a compendium of Estonian folk magic, so I would recommend to be on the lookout for that. And honestly, I know that there's either in existence already or coming very soon so many more books about the folk magic of particular countries, regions, written by my own either friends or peers, people I know and I can vouch for. So I'm so excited that there's so many resources that are available these days. And if you are interested in folk magic, I would highly recommend to always check if there's sources for the particular region, for the particular people that you're interested in. Either it's your heritage, maybe you are local to the culture, or you are just very interested in learning about it, right? It's always good to try and find authors or teachers who are actually local to the stuff that they're talking about. It should go without saying, it often doesn't, but it should, that those who grew up in a particular culture, who speak the language are the most immersed in said culture and the practices. They know these things from a very young age, and they can give you the most comprehensive and the most respectful introduction into these topics. So always make sure that you also research the person whom you're trying to learn from. It's just going to make things easier for you in terms of making sure that they have the background that they need to have in order to be able to relay this knowledge to the people out there, right? Usually, in my humble experience, it's the locals who know the language, who know the culture firsthand, who have the best ability to be able to do that. Now, I don't have any more books to show you, but I hope that the examples I gave you give you an overview of where you can start. Now, I would also like to say that I personally never recommend people to just learn from like TikToks or Reels or other short form content. In my humble opinion, when it comes to especially folk magic and any other cultural practices, short form content is not suitable for teaching you that kind of knowledge in the depth that it needs to be taught in. Okay, it can be good as a way of inspiring you to research something more in depth, or maybe make you aware that a concept exists, or make you aware that a source exists. But it's actually your responsibility as somebody who's imbibing that type of content to have the discernment to understand that that is not an equivalent of legitimate knowledge, legitimate teaching that, you know, needs to be happening if you want to do this thing seriously. So you kind of need to be honest with yourself, I think, about whether you're interested in it as a hobby, as something like a cool fun fact that you can, share with friends over a meal, or if this is something that you actually want to practice seriously in your life and be respectful towards, and ensure that you are not being part of the chain of misinformation that's happening out there about folk practices. There's a lot of misinformation out there, as I was mentioning. It's very popular. So you just need to have the discernment and understand that it's your responsibility to imbibe this knowledge in a responsible manner, okay? Now, if you are interested, you maybe are not so much of a book person, but you would like to learn from somebody directly in terms of Polish knowledge, especially Polish folk magic, right? I do teach. I often get asked about like one-on-one mentoring. I do not offer one-on-one anything at this stage. Is not something within my means to be able to do that at this point. If you would like to learn from me directly, you can do so by joining my Patreon community, which is just filled with amazing people. I just love this community dearly. And every month I give you in-depth classes about topics that the community votes for within the realm of Polish folk magic, with elements of traditional witchcraft as well, and animism. Everything I do is deeply rooted in animism as well, as a foundation that is very integral to all of my work. So if you want to learn directly from me, that's the only way at this time, joining my Patreon community, imbibing my classes, my courses, my video content, my articles. There's so much. I have been at it for 6 years now, so there's a huge back catalog of content available to you that's in depth. That type of content is especially suitable for people who read my book already and would like to know more, or don't like reading books that much and would prefer to imbibe this type of knowledge through other means, through other types of knowledge sharing, okay? Some people also ask if I know of anything who can teach you one-on-one in person if you come to Poland for vacation, if I'm available for that. And my answer to this is no, and the same for like diviners, because a lot of people apparently travel to Poland and want to meet up with a fortune teller or somebody who can do like a traditional Polish folk magic service for them. I don't know of any people who offer that to foreigners, to people who do not know the language, You need to understand that when you travel to a country like Poland, the majority of people who do this type of stuff might not be fluent in the English language enough to be able to provide a service like this for you. So I cannot really recommend anybody whom I know personally that is open to this type of stuff. I think it's kind of a matter of respect as well, that we do not treat somebody's practice, somebody's spirituality as something that's available as part of tourism, because this is not like an attraction that you can, get a ticket for something and go see a show or something like that. Spiritual services should not be seen this way, especially not the ones who are very deeply rooted in a culture, in a folk practice of a people, okay? I think it's also the respectable thing to do to not expect access to everything straight away. And if you want to immerse yourself in some spiritual practices that are cultural in nature, that are folk-based in nature, that you first do a lot of the work of immersing yourself in the culture, that you first need to do in order to have access to that. And I'm not saying this because I'm trying to fake gatekeep or anything like that. I'm just being honest with you. I, as a Polish person who lives in Poland since birth, Polish is my native language. As a local person, I also do not have access to everything out there in Poland. Some practices are very regional in nature. Some types of practitioners, only share their knowledge with folks who are from their family or who are local to them, from the same village, from the same region. And I also have to respect that. It's not like we can just go out there and grab anything we want because we like it or because it seems fun and mysterious. When it comes to engaging with folk practices, with cultural practices, this is kind of what I said at the very beginning. We need to be humble and we need to be respectful. So especially if this is something that you're new to, this learning, this immersing yourself, take it slow, learn from trusted sources, understand that it needs time and effort on your part to immerse yourself, and that this process itself is part of the whole thing. It's not like a chore that you need to do and that is unpleasant, but everybody goes through it. Like, no, that's actually part of the fun, this whole exploration, this uncovering, this learning, this understanding of completely different, maybe, ways of knowing, traditions, ways of understanding, ways of seeing the world, the whole folkloric perception of the world. It's a lot of new stuff that we all kind of go through the process of learning, of integrating within ourselves and kind of growing our roots into it in order to be able to partake in it in a meaningful way. So for everybody who's interested in Polish folk magic, in Polish culture, Polish folklore, I am always so happy to be able to do this work, to make these resources available to you, and to make it as easy as possible. But so some things can't be sped up and they do require effort on your part as well. So I hope that with this whole kind of guide laid out for you, that first of all it makes sense, that second of all you do understand where I'm coming from, and that I cherish an ethical way of approaching folk practices, and that if you want to learn from me, there's these resources that I laid out for you that are readily available to anybody who's interested. Hope this was enjoyable to watch. Thank you so much for bearing with me. I do realize that I'm probably rusty as hell because I wasn't recording in this format for YouTube in a very long time. Do let me know in the comments how you found the video. If you have any other questions, I would be very happy to answer them in forthcoming videos as well. So do hit me up with questions below. Anything that has to do with Polish folk magic, Polish folklore, witchcraft, animism, things in that realm. I am very happy to be answering those questions for you. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe, check out my Patreon, check out my book as well, and hopefully see you very soon out there. Bye.